Hello from sunny Barcelona. Now we have spent one day riding the brand new Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450 and we are sure you have plenty of questions about this bike and we want to try and answer some of the key ones.
My price went up, you can't afford me. I'm everywhere, I know you can't ignore me.
The Guerrilla is a roadster version of the Himalayan 450. It's got the same engine, the Sherpa 450, and even the frame is similar, although with a few key differences. Of course, what you'll notice first are the 17-inch alloy wheels at both sides, and the bike has a much lower stance, it's more compact. Clearly the aim with this was to make it a road-going bike, and RE says they wanted to make a bike that's more accessible to more riders. Now the Guerrilla's engine makes the same power and torque as the Himalayan, 40 PS and 40 Nm. But what has changed is the engine mapping. The throttle initially feels a little bit lazy, almost like the Himalayan, but open it further and the throttle gets a lot more aggressive. Get this motor spinning and it just wants to go. And it makes 80% of its peak torque from 2 to 8000 RPM, which makes it really punchy. In fact, on the hill roads outside Barcelona, this bike was a lot of fun thanks to that mad motor. Now, even the 6-speed gearbox is the same as the Himalayan with the exact same gear ratios as well. What has changed though is the rear sprocket, which is a bit smaller compared to the Himalayans. Now, that's given it a bit taller gearing compared to the Himalayan, and that should help with a little easier highway cruise. In 6th gear at 100 kph, this engine is doing 5000 RPM, which is a couple hundred RPM lower than the Himalayan. And you can sit at those speeds all day long without any stress. And even to overtake, it's got plenty of torque at those speeds. Just open the gas in 6th and you will pass traffic very easily. Now, even though the gearing is a bit taller, we think that this bike should be quicker to 100 than the Himalayan because it's 11 kilos lighter. And that's saying something because Himalayan is a pretty quick bike too. It's just 1 second slower to 100 than the new Duke 390. But of course, that's something we'll verify once we get the bike in Pune for a proper road test. Throttle wide open, and you have all the same vibrations on the Guerrilla as you have on the Himalayan 450. Of course, that harshness on the Himalayan between 5 to 6000 RPM, that's a lot less on the Guerrilla. But is it completely vibe free? Well, not really. Now, Enfield claims a mileage of 29.5 km per litre for the Guerrilla, but that's WMDC, not IDC. Now that's 1 kmpl more than what they claim for the Himalayan. Now in our road test cycle in Pune, the Himalayan gave us 29.5 in the city and 31.9 on the highway. So expect the Guerrilla to do a little bit more than that. But what will be less is the tank range because this tank is much smaller at 11 litres. So you might do about 300 kilometers before a refill. Now the Guerrilla chassis is based on that of the Himalayan, but there are some key differences. Mainly it's shorter and a bit narrower at the front, but that's more for packaging. For handling, what's changed is the rake angle, which is brought in by 4 degrees compared to the Himalayan, and that makes the trail shorter by 27 millimeters. That coupled with the shorter swing arm, and you have a wheelbase that's 70 mm shorter than the Himalayans, but still at 1440 mm, it's quite long, longer than even something like the Speed 400. Now you already mentioned the alloy wheels at both ends, both 17 inches, but of course they come with pretty chunky rubber as well. It gets radial tires, 120 section at the front and 160 section at the rear. Even with those chunky tires, the Guerrilla is very agile. It's very quick to change directions, but it feels quite stable when leaned over as well. The only thing is, if you start pushing really hard, the tires do feel lacking in a bit of edge grip, but under most conditions, there should be no problem at all. The Guerrilla gets a slightly smaller front disc compared to the Himalayan, but the brakes still feel really sharp and provide plenty of braking power. And while dual channel ABS is offered as standard, unlike the Himalayan, the Guerrilla's rear ABS is not switchable. The Guerrilla 450 doesn't get an upside down fork like the Himalayan, and even suspension travel is much lesser. On the fantastic tarmac outside Barcelona, we really couldn't test out the ride quality of the Guerrilla. But on the few small bumps we did encounter, the ride felt a bit firm. Now how that performs on Indian roads remains to be seen. In one word, yes. The single piece seat has a low seat height of just 780 mm. That's lower than even the Hunter 350, which means even if you're 5'5", you can get both your feet on the ground very easily. The foot pegs though are a little bit more rear set and a little higher compared to the Himalayans, and the bars are a little bit lower, so your posture is a little bit more aggressive, So it's fun when you're riding in the twisties, but it's not so aggressive that it becomes difficult in the city. But more than that, all the changes have made the Guerrilla lighter by 11 kilos than the Himalayan. It's only 184 kilos curb weight. So that's only 7 kilos more than the Hunter. So in theory, if you can manage the Hunter, you can manage the Guerrilla just as easily. The Guerrilla is surprisingly feature-packed for a retro roadster. The top two flash and dash variants get the same 4-inch color TV screen as the Himalayan. Now this screen is really information-packed and also gets Bluetooth connectivity with Google Maps navigation. The base analog variant gets the semi-digital instrument cluster from the Super Meteor 650. All variants get two riding modes, Power and Eco, which change the throttle response. And all variants also get a USB Type-C charger under the handlebar. Accessibility has been the mantra for the Guerrilla from the get-go, and RE has delivered on that in a big way. It's a very easy bike for beginners, and it's engaging and fun to ride for more experienced riders as well. So if you're in the market for a new retro roadster, the Guerrilla is very easy to recommend. With prices beginning from Rs 2.39 lakh, the Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450 is taking the fight straight to the Harley Davidson X440. In fact, it's only slightly more expensive compared to Triumph's 3400. But which of these new retro bikes would you pick? Let us know in the comments.